The morning of December 26, 2004 began like any ordinary day for millions of people on the shores of the Indian Ocean. Fishermen were heading out to sea, tourists were having breakfast at hotels, and children were playing on the beaches. No one suspected that within a few hours, this peaceful idyll would turn into an apocalypse. The most powerful earthquake in modern history, with a magnitude of 9.1, triggered a series of tsunamis that raced toward the shores of 14 countries at the speed of a jet plane. The waves reached heights of 15 meters, like a 5-story building, roaring with terrifying power. The water swept away everything in its path: buildings, cars, entire villages. When the first rescuers reached the devastated coastline of Sri Lanka, they were faced with a scene straight out of hell: mountains of debris, bodies of the dead, and the cries of the wounded. But amidst the chaos, something inexplicable happened. In a flooded palm grove 300 meters from the shore, they noticed movement. It was a child's mattress, bobbing on the waves. As they approached, the rescuers couldn't believe their eyes. Lying on the mattress was a living 4-month-old baby girl. The infant was exhausted, dehydrated, but alive. Her body was covered in scratches and bruises, but she had no serious injuries. How did she end up so far from the shore? How did she survive among the raging waves that overturned ships and wiped entire cities off the map? Why didn't sharks or other sea predators attack her? And most importantly, where were her parents? This girl, given the number 81 in the hospital because her name was unknown, would become the central figure in one of the most incredible and dramatic survival stories of the 21st century. Ahead of her lay a fight for life, legal battles between 9 families claiming her, and an investigation that would shock the world. But the most amazing part is how a random chain of circumstances, a series of incredible coincidences, and human courage saved this child's life where survival seemed almost impossible. If you're curious to learn the fate of this girl, give this video a like and stay tuned for more. The early morning of December 26, 2004 forever changed the lives of millions of people living along the shores of the Indian Ocean. What began as an ordinary day for the region's inhabitants, fishermen heading out to sea, tourists enjoying their vacations, and children playing on sandy beaches, turned within hours into one of the most devastating natural disasters in modern human history. It all started with a massive earthquake of magnitude 9.1, its epicenter located off the northwest coast of Sumatra Island in Indonesia. The seismic tremors were so powerful that they lasted nearly 10 minutes, causing a vertical displacement of the seabed over a stretch of more than 1,500 kilometers. This in turn triggered a series of giant waves, tsunamis, that raced toward the shores of neighboring countries at the speed of a jet plane. Their velocity reached between 600 and 800 kilometers per hour, while some waves towered over 15 meters high. Imagine it. A colossal wall of water, as tall as a 5-story building, roaring forward and obliterating everything in its path. The aftermath of this catastrophe was truly horrifying. The tsunami struck the coasts of 14 countries, including Indonesia, Thailand, Sri Lanka, India, and the Maldives. Within hours, entire cities were wiped off the map. Infrastructure was destroyed, and more than 230,000 lives were lost. Millions more were left homeless, having lost everything they owned. The economic damage was estimated in the billions of dollars, while the emotional scars from the tragedy remain unhealed to this day. Amidst the chaos and destruction, an event occurred that became a symbol of hope and a miracle amidst the tragedy. One little girl managed to survive where the chances of rescue were almost non-existent. Her story is not just a tale of survival, but also a reminder that even in the darkest moments, something extraordinary can happen to restore faith in human resilience and the strength of the human spirit. This event took place along the coast of Sri Lanka, one of the countries hardest hit by the tsunami. The flooded palm grove was located near the city of Hikkaduwa, known for its picturesque beaches and tourist infrastructure. Before the disaster, this area had been a popular destination for vacationers, but now it was a scene of chaos and destruction. It was here, among the partially uprooted palm trees still standing after being battered by the waves, that a miracle occurred. Rescuers found a baby girl who would become a symbol of hope for millions around the world. When the first rescuers reached the submerged palm grove, they were met with a landscape of total devastation. Water still covered the ground like a vast lake, filled with debris from destroyed homes, fallen trees, pieces of furniture, and personal belongings. Bodies of the deceased floated on the water or lay scattered amid the wreckage. The air was filled with cries of the wounded and the hum of rescue boat engines. Yet in this atmosphere of despair, a glimmer of hope emerged. Amidst the chaos, one of the rescuers noticed something unusual, faint movement in the distance. At first, it seemed almost imperceptible, as if some object was swaying on the waves. The rescuers steered their boat toward the spot, navigating through the murky water littered with debris. As they got closer, they froze in amazement. On the surface of the water, a child's mattress was floating, and on it lay a tiny baby girl. She appeared to be about 4 months old, and despite her weakened state, she was alive. Her fragile body stirred slightly. Her eyes were closed, but it was clear she was fighting to survive. This discovery left everyone who witnessed it deeply shaken. Imagine, hundreds of meters from shore, amidst the destruction where even adults had perished, a baby continued to cling to life. It felt like nothing short of a miracle. The infant was severely exhausted and dehydrated after spending hours under the sun and in the water. Her small body bore scratches and bruises from the battering waves and collisions with debris. However, miraculously, there were no serious injuries, no broken bones or deep cuts. Perhaps the mattress she was lying on acted as a protective shield, cushioning the impact of the waves and keeping her afloat. She was found 300 meters from the shore, an area completely flooded by the waves. There were no signs of life here, no houses, no roads, just muddy water and scattered debris. It was hard to imagine how such a fragile child could have survived the raging torrents of water that swept away homes and cars as if they were toys. Her mattress had likely been caught by the first wave and carried inland before subsequent waves pushed it back into the flooded grove. The rescuers carefully lifted the baby onto their boat, wrapped her in a blanket, and rushed her to the nearest makeshift hospital. Along the way, they couldn't stop asking questions. Why did she survive when so many others didn't? How was this possible? Why hadn't the powerful waves, which destroyed everything in their path, carried her out to sea? Perhaps the mattress kept her afloat, but what stopped it from flipping over or sinking? How did she avoid encountering marine predators like sharks that might have been lurking in the coastal waters? And most importantly, where were her parents? Had any of them survived? Imagine, a 4-month-old baby, alone amid the chaos that had wiped out everything around her. Perhaps her family had perished in the first moments of the catastrophe, and the waves had carried her far from home. Or maybe her parents had placed her on the mattress in a desperate final attempt to save her before being swept away themselves. These questions immediately began forming in the minds of the rescuers and everyone who learned about this incredible case. Answers remained elusive, but one thing was clear: the fate of this little girl became a symbol of hope amid the destruction. After the rescuers lifted the baby from the mattress, she was rushed to the nearest temporary hospital, set up in one of the few surviving buildings near the coast. Conditions in the hospital were dire. Doctors worked without sleep or rest, a shortage of medical supplies. And equipment complicated their efforts, and the sheer number of victims overwhelmed all possible limits. Despite this, the girl immediately received the necessary care. When the child was brought to the hospital, her condition raised serious concerns. She was severely exhausted, dehydrated, and teetering on the brink of life and death. The doctors performed emergency procedures. They connected IV drips to restore fluids in her body, cleaned her wounds, and monitored her condition every minute. However, they had no information about her identity, no name, no age, no details about her parents. For record-keeping purposes, they assigned her the number 81. That's how she became known during those first days after the disaster. The doctors not only fought for her physical survival, but also tried to surround the baby with care. Despite the overwhelming number of patients needing help, the hospital staff paid special attention to the girl. Nurses took turns holding her in their arms, warming her with their touch and feeding her through a bottle. Gradually, her condition began to improve. The child became slightly more active, her eyes opened, and she started responding to those around her. The baby's story quickly gained international attention thanks to local and global media coverage. Journalists reporting on the aftermath of the tsunami learned about the rescue and wrote articles that spread worldwide within hours. Photos of the tiny girl on the mattress and stories from the rescuers touched millions of hearts. Soon she was dubbed the Tsunami Baby, a symbol of miracle and hope amid destruction. The global public showed immense interest in her fate. Television channels, newspapers, and online platforms dedicated entire segments to the story of how this little girl survived, where the chances of rescue were almost non-existent. People around the world began discussing her case, asking questions. Who is she? Where are her parents? How did she manage to survive the catastrophe? The story resonated especially strongly in Sri Lanka and neighboring countries affected by the tsunami. Many people who had lost loved ones saw her as a ray of light. Some even interpreted her survival as a sign of divine intervention or destiny, but the interest wasn't purely emotional. The baby. A story also caught the attention of charitable organizations and volunteers. Many offered help, ranging from financial support to willingness to take the child under their care. When it became clear that her parents had likely perished, adoption applications began pouring in. Each family believed they could give her a new home and a new life. Thus, the story of the Tsunami Baby became more than just news. It turned into a global symbol of hope and human solidarity. But with this came numerous challenges. How to find her real relatives? If none existed, who should take custody of the child? These questions soon led to legal disputes that shocked society. The story of the Tsunami Baby quickly gained recognition not only in Sri Lanka but also far beyond its borders. When news spread through the media that a living girl had been found, families who claimed she was their child began reaching out to the hospital. In total, 9 families who had lost children during the disaster submitted claims. Each family presented their arguments, photographs, and stories about how their child could have been swept away by the waves. Some mentioned that their daughter had been wearing specific clothing, while others recalled birthmarks or unique physical features. However, due to the scale of destruction and chaos caused by the tsunami, it was nearly impossible to confirm or refute these claims. Documents that could have helped with identification were destroyed by the water, and there were no surviving witnesses who could verify the baby's identity. For example, one family claimed that their daughter had been on the beach with her grandmother when the tsunami hit. According to them, the woman might have placed the child on a mattress to save her, but she herself perished. Another family recounted that their infant disappeared along with their house, which had been completely washed away by the wave. Each story was filled with pain and hope that their child had somehow survived. The challenges were compounded by the fact that many families were in deep emotional shock. Losing loved ones in the catastrophe left deep wounds, and each family desperately wanted to believe that their child was still alive. This created immense pressure on doctors and investigators tasked with uncovering the truth. To resolve this complex situation, authorities decided to conduct DNA tests, the only reliable method to confirm kinship. Samples were collected from all claimants and compared with the baby's genetic material. The process was difficult and time-consuming. Some families lived in remote regions where infrastructure had been destroyed and they were in dire conditions. Additionally, many people who had lost relatives couldn't immediately provide samples because they lacked access to medical facilities. In parallel with the DNA testing, other investigations took place. Investigators gathered witness testimonies, analyzed photographs provided by the families, and tried to reconstruct the timeline of events. For instance, they determined whether any relatives had been in the area where the baby was found, and whether the child could have ended up there after the tsunami. The emotional side of the investigation was particularly dramatic. Every family hoped their claim would turn out to be true. They visited the hospital to see the baby, bringing toys and clothes as if already considering her theirs. However, the DNA test results inevitably shattered the hopes of most of them. One by one, the results showed that none of the families, except one, were the biological parents of the child. Conflicts between the families also became inevitable. Some accused others of trying to claim someone else's child, while others expressed distrust in the investigation process, deeming it unfair. Emotions ran high, and local authorities had to intervene to prevent open confrontations. One of the most touching moments came when families said goodbye to their hopes. Many wept, realizing their child had indeed perished, and now they had to accept that pain. But there were also those who continued to fight for the right to consider the baby their daughter, even after receiving the test results. Ultimately, the baby's identity was established. Her name was Abi Amandi, and she was indeed the daughter of one of the families that initially came forward. However, it was revealed that her parents and older brother had died in the tsunami. Abi's future then became the subject of new discussions. Who would take care of her? How could she be provided with a safe and secure future? Investigators were able to piece together what happened thanks to testimony from neighbors and relatives. According to them, Abi's family lived near the coast, and when the tsunami struck, her mother grabbed little Abi and placed her on a mattress in an attempt to save her. Powerful waves carried the baby far from home, while the rest of the family was swept into the ocean. This explained how Abi ended up so far from shore and why neither debris nor predators harmed her. The mattress had become her temporary protector. Once it was clear that Abi's parents and close relatives had perished, the court began considering her future. Hearings took place over several months involving distant relatives, friends of the family, and social service representatives. Several families expressed interest in taking Abi under their care, but the court had to make a decision based on the child's best interests. Eventually, the court ruled that custody should be granted to distant relatives of Abi's mother, an elderly couple living in a neighboring region. This family had experience raising children and could provide Abi with a stable and safe environment. Moreover, they were blood relatives, which the court deemed important for preserving cultural and familial traditions. The court's decision was made after carefully reviewing the living conditions, financial status, and willingness of potential guardians to care for the child. The court also considered recommendations from psychologists who had observed Abi in the hospital and noted her need for a stable and loving family. The ruling sparked widespread public reaction. Many people around the world had followed Abi's story and were deeply invested in her fate. Most welcomed the verdict, considering it the most logical and humane solution. People saw it as a sign of respect for the memory of her parents and an opportunity for Abi to maintain a connection with her family and roots. Locals and the international community continued to follow Abi's life even after custody was transferred. Her story became a symbol of hope and resilience, reminding everyone of the importance of human solidarity in times of tragedy. Many charitable organizations offered assistance to the family to ensure Abi had everything she needed for her development and well-being. Thus, Abi Amandi's story concluded on an optimistic note. Although she lost her family, fate gave her a new home and people who loved her like their own daughter. Her life became an example of how, even in the darkest of times, light and hope can be found. Epilogue. Despite losing her parents and enduring all the hardships, Abi Amandi's life turned out beautifully. She grew up as a healthy and much-loved girl. Today, she is an adult and everything is going well for her. Her adoptive parents did everything they could to keep her connected to her roots, sharing stories about her biological family and their history. The tragedy that occurred in 2004 showed just how fragile human life can be, but it also reminded us of the strength of the human spirit. Rescuers, doctors, volunteers, and ordinary people who came to help the victims demonstrated incredible solidarity. They worked day and night to find survivors, rebuild devastated cities, and support those who had lost everything. Abi's story is not only her personal triumph over tragedy, but also a testament to the power of human kindness. It reminds us that even in the darkest moments, we can find the strength to help one another, never lose hope, and always believe in a better future. If this story touched your heart, give it a like and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories. Share this video with friends and loved ones. Let us spread stories that remind us of the importance of human solidarity and hope. Together we can make the world a little brighter.